Queensland SportsTech, the X Factor, the heartbeat of every athlete. Universities, entrepreneurs and administrators now come together.
The Australian Open champion. Through with an epic elimination final. Spain a try-scoring form.
Brisbane, Australia.
The Games will be the catalyst for combining the know-how, the technical skills, the research and the entrepreneurship to build a transformative legacy.
Wow, what a great video. First time I've seen that. Congratulations. Yes. Nicolle Kelly, the ED, Executive Director of Sport Technology for the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport, DTIS. So Nick has a variety of expertise across international education, corporate sector, very well connected within government, and now heads up the SportX Strategy. So welcome, Nicolle. Corey Bell. My inside thought was going to come outside. So what a good looking orchid rose between the thorns. Thanks for joining us, Corey. Corey has come AFL background, worked for City of Gold Coast in attracting sport and sport events into the City of Gold Coast, and more recently a touch footy superstar, and working now with Next Level Racing and Exporter of the Year for Australia, weren't they?
Yeah, for creative design, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So welcome, Corey. And last but not least, Ingrid Proud, who has recently, probably not that recently, been appointed to the Minister, who we heard his words at the end there, Legacy Committee for Queensland for the Brisbane 2032 Games, and extensive experience in major events, the planning of major events, AR, VR, XR, all of those cool things that we don't know what they mean. So that's why Ingrid's here to talk to us about that and how to plan for major events. So welcome, Ingrid. Stellar panel. Very excited to be hosting this one. But Nick, the video is sensational. We hear SportX, we hear SportTech. What is it, and has it really got value? We've heard it all throughout today, but is it for reals, as Bluey would say?
Thanks, Nat. So yes, it's for reals. So the SportsTech, and thanks Q Sport for inviting me to be part of this awesome panel today. So SportsTech is an industry that last year was valued in Australia at 3.1 billion, and figures are coming out this week that in just a year that's risen by 1.1 billion. So now within Australia valued at 4.2 billion, the sports tech industry. And it's It's comprised of around 10 or 11%, I believe. I haven't read all of the figures yet, of the sports industry in Australia. So it is a big part of the industry already. It's a growing part. And then I think one of the questions that come to people when they hear sports tech is what on earth is it? We've heard a lot around technology reference today. The Australian Sports Technology Network, the ASTN, they've identified 150 subsectors of sports tech, so it's big. And sometimes I think it's hard to get your head around what that might mean. It sits into three kind of big buckets. One around the business of sport and entertainment. So there's a lot of things happening globally and locally around fan engagement, around blockchain, around stadia design, a whole range of technology that is doing some exciting things in sport and entertainment. We've heard gaming. Then there's elite sport. That's probably quite well known around the technology and how that can be applied to high performance and elite sport and really get that 1% of difference increasingly in a digital world. And then there's kind of the bucket of mass participation and active living, which is really important. And we've heard today around how things like gaming, esports, personalised wearables, those type of things can really increase the interest and participation in that active living and wellness. So that's kind of a bit of an overview. My role, I'm privileged enough to be leading the development of a sports tech strategy for Queensland Government, and I was even more privileged to start that with Nat, when Nat was still in Queensland Government. So the intention of that is to establish Queensland as the sports tech capital of Australia. So there's not one that's recognised really. Sports tech is a globally really fast growing emerging trend. We've got in Queensland awesome universities, some of whom represented here in the top 10 in sports and sports tech in the world. We've got great sports tech companies, some of them represented on stage here and some in the room. We've got excellent athletes, coaches. We've got great sporting bodies who are also represented here. And we've got government interest at all levels, federally, state, locally. There's a lot of interest there. What there is an opportunity to do is to connect that a bit better. And I think we've heard today some really good examples of where there's interest in sporting organisations, but you don't necessarily know where to go or what to do to solve it. There's things that are probably already happening that through our work and through the development of a sports tech strategy, we can actually just help connect the ecosystem better together for better outcomes.
Fantastic. Corey, you are now in a field, you've gone from traditional fields to gaming fields and working with an emerging, that get to talk the money. Like often some of our grassroots sports here aren't aligned to a financial pathway, and we are in awe of those that can. You've just jumped into a new seat, literally in the virtual world, and Next Level Racing aligning with Ferrari as their esport console. Talk to us how you've managed that transition yourself and how you see it helping our traditional sports.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. I just want to open by saying congrats on the green and gold athletes. It's something that I think deserves a big round of applause in the room. We've talked about it for a lot of years and it's great to see it come to life. I just want to open by saying on behalf of our CEO, Hess, who a lot in the room know, and our co-founder, Tony, it's a real privilege and honour to sit here on behalf of Next Level Racing and as a sport tech company. The word being comfortable being uncomfortable is probably the quickest way to summarise what you've asked the question on. For me, I've had 30 years as an athlete and a sport administrator or working through sport in government, and to move in as the head of commercial for a company. If you don't know who or what Next Level Racing is, we're the world's leaders in drive and flight simulation. We're in 54 countries, 300 and something resellers, and we're taking on the world in simulation. When I say that is we're looking for other ways to continue to emerge the tech through simulation, and we'll chat probably a bit later around how sports might want to think about having tech combined with their sport. And I had a great conversation with Tim a few days ago around, and we used the term accelerated blur. So I think there's this sport world over here, which that's all I've known. I think you've known as well, Nat, and a lot in the room. And this whole sport tech world's starting to emerge on this side. And what we're seeing is that start to knit together. And when I started at Next Level, we sort of thought, strategically, let's get ready for the 2028 LA Games. They may have a bit of demo, and that'll roll into 2032 Brisbane. And that's pretty exciting with a lot of time. And about 4 weeks into the role, the ISC come out and said, we're going to run an eSport week on the 23rd to the 25th of June in Singapore. Who's ready? Let's go. And we were scrambling going, how do we get our heads around this accelerated blur? What's exciting, I think, for me is that as that blurs, there's space for everybody in that space. They opened with 5 sports looking to kick off that eSports week. It's now up to 11. I might just read them out if that's all right. I did write them down because I'd forget. But on the Friday, there'll be archery, cycling, diving and sailing. Then on the Saturday, they go into baseball. I can't read my writing here, Nat. Taekwondo, sports shooting, tennis, and Sunday motorsport and chess. So again, for us, what's really interesting about that is that the Olympic Committee's never done motorsport. I think in 1900 in Paris, they had a little bit of a trial of it, but haven't actually run through that motorsport lens, yet they've brought that in now as part of what they're doing for esports. So my subliminal message in all of that is what you think you know, it's emerging so quickly. And we spoke at the SportX event a few weeks ago around that Moore's Law, which I didn't know what that was in the room. If you don't know, it's around technology doubling sort of every 2 years. And I think it's going quicker than that. And I think the blur of sport and sport tech is something that's really interesting and intriguing. And that's why I've come on board with Next Level. They're an amazing company. It's a heap of fun. I'm the dumbest person in the room. I've got all these young technical staff members that are teaching me something every day. And it's just really exciting to see sport tech and sport blend.
And sorry, Nat, just to pick up on that, so the IOC have appointed a head of esports. So I think that is another indication of that blur of sport and sport tech and where we might see that going.
I thought you were going to poised ready, Ingrid.
I am poised ready on the e-sport conversation because I think sometimes too when you talk about e-sport, particularly in yourselves as state organisations, you go, what am I going to create an actual e-sport game that's going to be played in front of tens and thousands of people? But the opportunity with e-sport is actually doing a gamification because you want to attract a different market to your sport. You might have people playing your sport or generally watching if it's mum and dads and friends, but how do you attract that whole different demographic to have a general gamification in a game that they can download and actually get the eyeballs that you want? Or how do you actually monetize that yourselves? It doesn't necessarily have to be an e-sport competitive nature. It's something from a marketing sense as well. So you've got to look at a different digital front of things as well. So I wanted to add that in because we talk a lot about e-sport, but the technology is there to do a lot of marketing and also attract a whole new demographic to view your sport and also interact into it as well. And not just for the sport itself, but your referees and umpires using it as gamification. How do you train them in that sort of environment that's on web VR or VR or in a game way, so their memory retention is up to 90% when you use things in that sense. Because if you look at PowerPoint, you're only getting about 30% of your memory retention. But if you're immersive and interactive in something, your memory picks it up much quicker. So just want to add that into the whole eSport conversation, that there's a lot about it, but there's also so many other avenues this technology and digital front can go down to.
And Nat, I might add to that, you were aware we did the partnership with Motorsport Australia a few months ago. The mainstream sport, drive on tracks, the physical, we're the virtual. We had great conversation where we are able to essentially, in theory, bring the sim races to on the track. That's our role in the partnership. And in return, they've got a lot of people that drive on track that are looking to practice if it's wet or if they can't get to the track or they just want to get better. I think Shane Van Gisbergen said at the end of last year, his simulator was part of the reason that it helped him get the title of, the V8 Supercar. So to hear that, again, that's that blur. And I think if you're a sport in the room, it'd be good to be not confronted by this, but to sort of say, how do I add this as a value add? Like for us, we had the stream of virtual, but how do we combine the physical?
It's all achievable too. So don't just think esports like F1 where it's a lot of money. Everything's achievable to what you want it to be as well. So don't think you can't reach it. And technology is moving so fast, as we said. Whoever said they're a futurist, come tell us what's happening in 20 years because I would have no idea. There's lots of new stuff. It's happening every day. We can't keep up with what the changes are that's occurring.
And I think some of that, sorry Nat, you'll be lucky to get another question in,
all,
quite
actually,
frankly.
contrary to popular belief, it's great.
But I think that does speak sort of the convergence of using the technology that's available does speak to some of what we've heard today around, Queensland is geographically dispersed and to speak to next level. Motorsport is an expensive sport to get into. So to get into it, you had to have rich parents, basically. Whereas you can with Next Levels Tech, you can be in Mount Isa, you can be wherever, you can start on a $300 simulator or less, and you then can get up that you're being picked up by professional teams to have a career that you would not have had in the past. I think the other thing that technology allows, and Mick spoke to it before, is the democratisation of sport, that you can have people of all abilities playing it. There's not a gender divide in male and female. Like, there are some elements there that we could explore better than to not do away with the pathways to the traditional physical sport, but to augment and to converge and give different experiences to people who don't currently have them.
Connectedness and accessibility for anybody, realistically, for those.
Yeah, and the sim sports don't discriminate. The boys race the girls in the sim racing. The girls, we've got schools we work with where, the girls come into these private schools and they've learned to drive maybe on a farm or whatever at a young age, and then they get on the sims and they're going as well or even better than the boys, and older, younger. All abilities. It's a good thing for us just to blend all of that together, Nat.
Not to mention if you crash it in the eSIM,
like I do,
just press reset
and away
and
you
go
go
again. So back to the IOC. So interestingly, the Singapore event opens on Olympic Day, June 23rd. So I have a different take, and I'm not saying I have any inside information at all. Please, this is Natalie Cook's take. They're building their own event. The IOC have got eSport Week. So take that however you want to. Does not mean it will enter Brisbane 2032.
We're coming now.
There might be another week.
It's happening.
There'll be a festival of esports at some point. The IOC's current definition, although you've added chess and some other things in there, baseball. Paul, how do you play esport baseball? Like, do you throw imaginary, or do you get one of those little Vold balls and chuck it at, what do you do? Do I need a physical bat, or I'm just swinging nothing? Visual recognition, okay, because the definition, before there was a head of esports, takes a long time to get from Switzerland to Australia via paper plane, was it had to be a physical representation of the sport. So you had to be rowing on an ergo or biking on a Swift, but now we're playing taekwondo, so look out. Watch that space.
To the point, Nat, where the shooting sport, I think, is Call of Duty, which... Again, there's all sorts of elements.
I don't know where you go.
Hold on, Nat. You cannot call shooting sport Call of Duty. That is
all I'm saying, Nat, is...
Don't go there, Belly. Don't go there. Go.
All I'm saying is what we think we've got covered and that we think that's what it's going to be. There's just more things emerging is all I'm saying. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
No.
I'm just saying... what we think it is and where it might be in 28 and where it might be in 32 might be very different.
And we've all got differing opinions. But Rocket League was at the Commonwealth Games.
Correct.
In Birmingham. And there was an e-sport team that won a bronze medal from Australia. So who knows? Commonwealth Games 2026. Let's see what sports or esports we're playing. Let's talk about major events. And obviously, the Gabba's going to be redeveloped. Which is where I've got to go after this panel. I've got to go to the Gabba. Just I might put a hard hat on and knock a bit down while I'm there. For the OCOG, my meeting with OCOG. So tell us about what digital twins represent and the tech being deployed for big stadiums with big budgets. How can it help Queensland sports?
Yeah, so everyone should know by now what a digital twin is. I think.
Hold on.
Well,
That's an
I'm
assumption.
I haven't even finished that part yet.
Okay. Does anyone not know what a digital twin is? Please be brave enough to put your hand up.
That was my next question,
Great.
but we're now.
Perfect.
back and
Okay. Well,
forth.
I won't interrupt again.
So if you all know what a digital twin is, which is great, and I think that whole virtual world, came to more fruition during COVID anyhow, which we're hopefully completely past with. But going to digital and sport tech, if I can decide a little bit, is that sport tech is not. I like to see it more as administration-wise as well. It's not just sport tech in relation to physical high performance or aspects like that. Being in major events for about 25 years, it's about how do we do things more efficient and effective? How do we actually collaborate and how do we integrate what we're doing? I think with digital twins, why would you create the stadium at the Gabba and have the field, an oval field, and then create another one, and then create another one? When you've got one digital twin, when the field of play relatively is exactly the same field of play, say for AFL, at every AFL field, apart from your bells and whistles and look around it. You have a certain international standard for your sports that have to meet that field of play criteria. So why would you create 5,000 of them when one of them is sufficient? And you can share that digital technology. And then you can use it for multiple things. You use it for training, training referees and umpires, from designing the different events around it, to showing new people about the sport or new athletes how to sort of enter onto the field, doing orientations for new people going to the Olympics so they can actually feel and see what it's like to walk out into a stadium, so before they get there, so they don't have that level of anxiety before they get there. They've actually already done it before. So those sort of areas. So with the Gabba, it's about a lot of those designers, I mean, so many architects now, they're all using 3D. They're all creating in 3D. So we just need to use and share the data. I think the big thing here, and we spoke about collaborations, we keep saying it, but we have to do it. And people have to be on board with it. And we can't keep all the knowledge. We have to share the knowledge. And that's the most powerful part of it, is that we share that piece and be able to share it to the right people. And so we're not having to spend all the money individually to be able to create these things.
So Nick, the SportX Connect series, is that, I was there a week ago and you had 100 people talking about technology with Health and Wellbeing Queensland. The kids, if you can't beat them, join them. So Health and Wellbeing Queensland have developed a program called Pod Squad to get the kids actively engaged in tech and sport. How do you see, if we take that from my 7-year-old in Pod Squad all the way through a tennis environment? We got Darren here from tennis. How does the tech help grow tennis's activation base and enhance my daughter's experience?
Sure. Just a small question.
Yeah.
There. So
I'm getting specific on tennis here, but it could be golf. Where's golf, Nicolle? Could have golf, TrackMan and all of those things.
Yeah, look, I think tech can come into sport in so many ways, and just so we're not speaking code, SportX Connect is a monthly event that we run to try and connect the sports tech ecosystem and the sporting ecosystem. So if you want more information, I'll send it to Tim to send out through the network. But we've run a few different events, and it's really interesting just getting people in the room, sort of connects some really good conversations. Nat, to your question, what tech can do is gamify, right? And gamification, like, humans are competitive and we like to have fun. Like, that's just part of the nature. And we used to gamify an analogue, it doesn't need tech. I was talking with Dr. Lucy Cameron earlier and talking about 10,000 steps. Now, 10,000 steps has been around forever. I did it ages ago as part of, it happened once a year and your team would get together and it's a work thing. And with no tech involved, it got more exciting from, no tech apart from the pedometer, but it got more exciting from just hit your 10,000 steps to, as a team, we can walk to Cairns in this amount of time. And it was just how many steps you did. And then, today we're at Rocky and sort of that type of thing. That didn't need gamification as such. That was just applying some fun. What tech can do is it can bring an element of engagement and an element of community, that you can connect with people who aren't physically next to you, And so the gamification element is big. Tennis as a sport are an example of a sport in Australia that have embraced tech really well. And they have, the capability to do that with some of the big events like Australian Open, but they've run a sports tech startup program where they've identified areas, and that's the question for the sports in the room. You can't do everything. And I think speaking to one of Kieran's points around know your strategy, know where you want to go, and then look at where tech can help you in your priorities, because it can be applied to everything, but you don't have the capability and the resources to do it. So it can help in fan engagement, it can help in connecting and gamifying so that your daughter can be going physically playing, but also have a gamification online element that keeps her interested, that keeps her winning badges and having digital experiences that she can have her avatar that complements her physical experience. But for the sports in the room, it might not be the exciting, yes, gamify it. Your priority might be you need to spend less time doing the admin stuff. And so if you can apply some tech to how you manage your volunteers, to how your community, there's a great company on the Gold Coast, two brothers who love basketball, and they were the ones who got stuck every week with collecting the funds from everyone, because it's still a very cash-based sort of sport that isn't a cash-based society anymore. So they're trying to get the $10 a week off everyone, and then they'd be out of pocket, and they didn't want to chase someone up for $10 because you feel like you're being tight. And so they were like, there must be a better way to do this. And they've developed an app that has now got hundreds of thousands of users, millions of dollars go through it. They started it with their local basketball club on the Gold Coast. Like, there's existing tech out there that can take away some of the administrivia that you guys are probably spending your time on, that you can't think about the more strategic things that will take your game into where it needs to go. So I think you need to think about what is your strategy, where are your priorities, and then look and reach out. You don't have to know it all yourself. Reach out. We can connect you, we can help, but reach out to go, well, where is tech best applied to my priorities? And it might be the fun, exciting things we're talking about, and it might be something quite boring, but it stops you doing the boring stuff and it automates it, and you can do the more exciting.
Well, see, that boring stuff, I feel from, ironically, my first job was at Q Sport. So I came out of uni, and Q Sport here now, Sports Federation Queensland, was my first job out of university. So I do see some very familiar faces around the room that's been here that long as well. But the big thing about it is that boring stuff is very important because it's the base foundation of your organisations. If you can't manage your administration effectively and efficiently, you can't do, as you said before, all the great strategic, innovative ideas around it, because you're just bogged down by all the extra stuff. So the digital side of technology and how you run your organisations is really imperative to get that base area working first and working really, really well, so you can then do everything you need to do. And then you have data sets quickly available. You can start looking at your trends that has been spoken about today. What is the trend? How is it moving? And the amount of apps and things that are out there to do things better, there is an infinite amount of information and things that you can jump into and try. But you need to really, before you use it, you need to do your research. Does it work for you? Does it work for your organisation? Can your staff operate it? Because what I've seen a lot just in sport or major events is all this technology gets thrown in from an administration point of view, and then halfway through people go, it's too much work, I can't handle it, and they just go back to paper. And so then it's not been adopted and used properly. So you really have to make sure that when you do apply your different digital technology aspects to help with the administration, you use it properly and you work it with your team to make sure everyone really understands how to use it. Otherwise, it'll just go back in the bottom drawer, the top drawer of the kitchen, whatever the one that you have at home. Don't even want to look at my drawers in the kitchen right now with what's going on. But that's sort of where we need to go to. And even there's so many great stories of Rostify and a whole bunch of other stuff, managing volunteers, WeTrack for incident management. There's so many things out there. I think we need to be smart about not reinventing the wheel and actually finding the things that are out there and making it suit how you need to your unique sport. But in saying that, I still think, and I'm going to throw it out there, you need to work with other states. It's not just about working with Queensland. I'm very big on the collaborative nature. If we keep saying we're going to be collaborative, we should be keeping competition to the field of play and looking at a collaborative nature outside of it a little bit further and not trying to hone in on our state, because this is where the cost savings on a lot of things too can be shared around the part, because otherwise you're doing the same thing New South Wales is doing and Victoria is doing in some respects, but you need to look at that in a bit more deeper dive as well for that technology use.
Great. Sadly, running out of time. Have we got a question?
How does that technology work? Like you were saying, baseball, it sounds a bit like an old wing machine to me. But how does it work in a team sport with 5 or 7 players on the court?
I'll have a go at it as not an expert.
You're going to be there in a
Gons,
month,
but,
so you'll have to take lots of
with
video
luck,
for
so
us.
I think it's how you reconfigure the. So I'll talk to the motorsport piece. So again, you can't have 20 in a race with 20 sims. So you may, I think there's sort of talk, with the ISC event where they're actually done it as a time trial. And so you may do the individual sports one-on-one that way. So they reconfigure how it's actually done.
Some of it, so QUT, for example, when we talk about the potential for convergence of e and virtual sport with physical sport, QUT have set up a virtual cycling lab at their premises at Gardens Point, and so they have 10 Zwift connected bikes that they are connected, and you can ride the same track, you can ride Tour de France tracks, etc. So there's things that can be done with connectivity. I'm not a tech expert in how those are designed, but there's connectivity around, and you can have multiple players in different locations who are all playing the same.
With So virtual reality with the headsets like Oculus, you can actually do group dynamics within that. So if you're all within that space, you could have 10 of us in this room right now with a headset on in a whole new immersive world that no one else can see apart from if it's put on TV. We could be playing a game together. So, but that technology, it's at a certain stage now. It's going to continually increase its ability to be more and more accurate later down. But I don't think it's ever going to be 100% accurate like you would be catching a netball as anything is. But there is group dynamics in a lot of that aspect already in play in technology.
And you don't have to all be in the same room. So we could be in Adelaide. You could have a team of 5 all over Australia playing in the same field of play as the next team from Korea.
Yeah.
So now we had a community event a few months ago and had 50 competitors from around the world to raise money, was a fair few months ago for Movember, and they were from every country, and we link them all up through iRacing, and the connectivity piece is powerful, really powerful.
And that's key on the accessibility front too, and accessibility being either Paralympians or just accessibility to actually travel somewhere. There's an opportunity to train in all those different locations and do simulations on the field of play, because you can't actually get there. I know with a lot of Paralympians, they've been able to get on a flight. It takes a lot of effort to get on a flight. So being able to manage all your plays within that simulation and then meet up for the competition, you've got that extra extended ability to sort of have been in that environment beforehand, because you can't get to the field together because it's less opportunities.
So I spoke to Kieran about 2060, and you just said you can't look even to 32 away with technology. So give me, in 2 years' time, you've got one word each to think at what, in 2 years' time, the technology space, give me a word.
Accessible.
Connectivity.
Oh, that was mine.
Sorry. I'll go again if you want.
Last word, Nick.
World leading from Queensland.
Great, one
One
word.
hashtag word, one word.
Hyphenated,
Let's hear it from
hyphenated.
our amazing technology panel. Thank you.